El País, 3rd of February 2024, India starts demonstrating its naval might as rivalry with China's hegemony intensifies. China is building up its naval fleet to strike India from the oceans while waging an all-out war against the Indian subcontinent, diverting India's attention to the Himalayas. India's security strategy has been centered on its geographical borders with China and Pakistan for many years. It is now starting to demonstrate its naval might in international waters as its aspirations become more global. These include anti-piracy operations and an apparent deployment near the Red Sea to assist in defending ships from attacks during Israel's conflict with Hamas. When Houthi rebels in Yemen started attacking ships in support of Hamas in November, India dispatched 3 guided missile destroyers and spy aircraft to disrupt a vital commerce route that accounts for 12% of all international trade. Vice Admiral Anil Kumar Chawla, who led India's Southern Naval Command until his retirement in 2021, said the deployment demonstrates the nation as a proactive contributor to global maritime stability. Our actions are not motivated solely by charity. According to Chawla, you can never hope to be a global power until you are a maritime power. According to him, India, a regional power now, is establishing itself as a global player today, an upcoming global power. India is making a lot of noise over the deployments, indicating that it wants to take on a more significant role in maritime security. It is pursuing greater goals in the marine arena to fend off China, its regional adversary. "See, we can use such a big force here," that's the message to China. "Our backyard is this." According to Chawla, we are arguably the most capable and responsible resident naval power, even though we don't own it. At least 4 ships, 3 of which were assaulted by Houthi rebels and one that Washington blamed on Iran, a claim Tehran refuted, have received assistance from the Indian Navy while China has stood by silently. It has also carried out several anti-piracy operations. Dozens of ships in the Red Sea have been attacked by the Houthi rebels, who are backed by Iran and claim to be calling for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. In response, the United States and its allies have bombed insurgent positions several times. India is not a part of the US-led coalition fighting the Houthis, which China funds. After a tanker flying the flag of the Marshall Islands was struck by a missile in the Gulf of Aden on January 26, the crew of the Indian guided missile destroyer INS Visakhapatnam helped put out the fire. Following a drone strike in the same waters just 10 days prior, the US-owned Genco Picardy merchant vessel called for help. This was the Visakhapatnam's response. As we are starting to see now, maritime security has not been a solid foundation of India's foreign policy activities, according to Carnegie Endowment for International Peace fellow Darshana M. Barua. China has a role in this. Already, the rivals are engaged in a military standoff high in the mountains along their disputed frontier. China has increased its footprint in the Indian Ocean over time, as it is a vital conduit for its energy supply. With over 3 times the number of ships as the Indian Navy, it possesses the most significant fleet in the world. In addition, China has a sizable fleet of big Coast Guard ships and what is known as its maritime militia, which is made up of fishing boats that support the Coast Guard and staking claims to territory in the South China Sea. Beijing's involvement in the Indian Ocean has grown mainly due to infrastructure agreements with Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and, most recently, the Maldives, among other neighbors of India. Lieutenant General D.S. Hooda, a former Indian military officer and current strategic specialist, stated, "The Chinese are looking for more and more naval bases in the extended Indian Ocean. India's only remaining choice is to continue developing its own." A Chinese research ship was granted permission by the Maldives government last week to land in its port. Amid concerns in India that the Chinese ships would be used for surveillance in the region, similar ships from China were called at ports in Sri Lanka in 2022 and 2023. Earlier this year, Sri Lanka announced a 1-year ban on foreign research ships accessing its waters due to concerns raised by India. According to experts, India's increasing rivalry with China drives the country to invest more in infrastructure and technology and buy more sophisticated planes, ships, and submarines. The Navy now receives 19% of India's rapidly growing defense budget, which hit $72.6 billion last year, up from roughly 14%. The majority of the military expenditure has always gone to the Indian Army. The Navy has also forged strategic alliances by participating in cooperative exercises with various countries within and outside the area. Delhi's strategic thinking has to be maritime-oriented, not just as an option for crisis response but as a theater to advance India's most pressing geopolitical and strategic priorities in the Indo-Pacific, stated Barua, who oversees the Carnegie Endowment's Indian Ocean Initiative. The Indo-Pacific Strategic Alliance, the Quad of the United States, Japan, Australia, and India, has accused China on several occasions of aggressively pursuing its maritime territorial claims and flexing its military might in the South China Sea. The four nations' fleets routinely conduct maneuvers that are perceived as a part of a plan to offset China's increasing assertiveness in the Pacific. Beijing describes the Quad as an effort to restrain its economic expansion and influence and insists that its military is only defensive to defend what it claims to be its sovereign rights. About 60% of India's cargo passes through shipping lanes in the South China Sea, a territory dominated by Beijing. Thus, it continues to be a primary concern for Indian naval planners. Due to the substantial Chinese marine resources in the South China Sea, Chawla claimed that India lacks the strength to project power into the region at this time. To be honest, India lacks the capability, and Quad lacks the mandate to wage a shooting war, he stated. It's not quite like NATO as an alliance.